A few years ago, I had just gotten off the phone setting up some outreach with a biology group at a Midwest university when I got an email from the same department and the same school. It took a few emails back, but I eventually realized that there were two outreach programs in the same department that did pretty much the same thing but didn't talk to each other or share knowledge. So I thought, this is amusing, and worked with both groups, but then it happened again. That's when I thought, maybe this is worth exploring. Hi, I'm Kate Carter, and I work for the National Center for Science Education. Along with Michelle Valkanis from California University of Pennsylvania, we're talking about the promises and pitfalls of graduate training in science communication. The outreach landscape has transformed in the past 20 years. It is amazing that so many scientists are finally realizing just how important it is to contextualize their work. I think the conversation has moved to a really interesting place, which is, what does doing that work effectively even look like? In 2019, I started a national training program for graduate students that sought to engage populations that were distrustful of science. And when you work for a national organization, you get a bird's eye view of how scientists engage the public in different locations. And to be clear, there were really important differences about how, for example, outreach works in rural versus urban environments. And those are really important for reaching those populations effectively. But as the conversation turns from how do we do it at one site to how do we do it effectively across a community or even the country, there are some emergent problems that we as scientists need to be cognizant of addressing. For one thing, outreach is quite siloed in most places. A lot of people create opportunities, great opportunities that work really well, but they create them from scratch, and they don't always take knowledge from other places or share knowledge when they're done. And that means that we're lagging behind when it comes to developing a community of best practices. Another implication of this is that when people don't work collaboratively, there are often populations that are quite overserved and other groups in the community whose voices are vital to making STEM as diverse as the rest of our country who don't have as much access to outreach opportunities. Another conversation we need to keep having is, how does science outreach or community engagement differ from science communication? We often use these terms interchangeably, but at the same time, we know that there's more to building trust in science than making eye contact or not using big words. Finally, I think scientists are grappling with the possibilities inherent in a model of community co-creation. There's been a growing realization that science outreach starts quite late and ends quite early in the user experience design process. We don't take a lot of time to fully understand where the audience is coming from or what their needs are, and we also don't really evaluate how impactful the outreach opportunities that we provide are, especially not on a systemic level. I think the implications of changing the way we do outreach by creating opportunities with the public, involving key stakeholders early and often, positioning ourselves as a toolkit to help people tell their own stories, and understanding the responsibility of science to advocate for social change will actually be crucial for helping build inclusion and trust. These changes are hard to make, but one amazing lesson I've learned doing this work is how motivated and capable science graduate students and early career faculty are at building an understanding of the outreach landscape and applying their science research skills to informal science research. Where I thought I would be able to use the NCSE Graduate Student Outreach Fellowship to help graduate students engage their populations more effectively, I instead ended up helping graduate students do the systemic work to understand gaps in their community, conduct interviews, build interventions, and publish their work in informal science journals. They've gone on to be leaders in transforming the science outreach in their communities and even started training new graduate students. Changing the future of outreach is a lot of work for any one person. Thankfully, we know that the best outreach happens collaboratively.